Hello, friends. So today let's talk about the research competencies required for portfolio pathway. So based on the new curriculum, uh, the research competencies required is common for every cohort. And so whether it is 1A, 1B, or 2, and it is the same requirement across the specialties. So there are three ways you can you can get this competency done. Where in the curriculum they've mentioned three options. So let's go through these options and see how we can collect the evidence. So option one is you need all the five, requirements. So in option one, there is being in a role anytime in your career which has significant research commitment. Now, this could be, say, you have a role in your trust or hospital R&D, research and development team, any research role. So that is something which you can include, whether as a research fellow or or maybe as a principal investigator. What I can share from my experience is that I was a research tutor for a year for University of Liverpool. So I demonstrated, obviously at that time this curriculum was not there. We were still following the old curriculum. But if you've got such roles, you can use that as an evidence where you have an appointment letter or any contract with the job description, and you can add a reflection to that role. So, for example, for me, the role of the research tutor was to support medical students. I think it was either they were in the year 4 or year 5. uh, Now, this is something which I'm talking about 5 years ago. So it was to support medical students with literature review ideas, and once we formulated the idea and the review question, then they start doing the literature search, and then critically reviewing the articles, and then writing a literature review based on that. So, and then once they completed that, I would assess, evaluate it, and then submit it to the university. So uh, in that, we used to support the medical students at regular intervals, where we had supervision sessions once in a couple of months or once in 3 months, and you would guide the student in how to write a review article, and also check their draft, and then finally check their final manuscript. So in a way, in this way, you can reflect that, what is it that you learned from it, and how it like, personally, it helped me polish my critical appraisal skills and academic writing skills. So in a way, these experiences are very useful. So you keep a log of that activity, about how many times you delivered any teaching sessions around research or workshops or supervision. And then if you have an appraisal for that role, or you can include that in your yearly annual appraisal, you can include that, in that, in your regular appraisal, that you were doing a particular research role, and how long was that role for. And then uh, I think the requirement now is that along with your research role, you should be doing one critical appraisal in a journal club, or in your peer group, reflecting on a particular research methodology. So again, that is still the requirement in option one. So this is how you can fulfill the requirement if you're following option one, but it has to include A, B, C, D, and E. Say if in the research role, where it includes significant research commitment. So say if you were a principal investigator or a co-investigator for your particular research project, then again that fulfills the criteria, that you were the principal investigator of a research project or a co-investigator. Now, when it comes to option two, if an applicant has ever, now there is no time limit here. It could be like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, doesn't matter. Ever completed a research qualification. So whether it was like MPhil or MD research or PhD, so that is something you can include as an evidence along with the dissertation you did. And along with that, I think the reason why they require this critical appraisal is even though you've done this, you've done your MD or PhD years ago, whether you still retain those skills. Hence, they are expecting to do one critical appraisal on research methodology, which could be presented at the journal club or peer review. And the way you demonstrate that is uh, submitting the PowerPoint presentation and the feedback from that presentation. So you can triangulate it by doing a presentation, obtaining feedback from the audience, from your group, and doing a reflection on it. Then the third option is attendance at CPD activity, which is a good clinical practice and research, critical appraisal, or research methodology. So again, you can there is NIHR good clinical practice e-learning module which you can do to demonstrate that. And the other option is maybe you delivering teaching sessions for students preparing for paper B, MRC Psych paper B. So in as we all know that in MRC Psych paper B, there are questions around critical appraisal. So like if you're delivering some teaching sessions for students, for doctors preparing for that, then you can use that as an evidence of your CPD, and that could be evidenced via your appraisal. So say if you are doing your yearly appraisal as a clinical supervisor, you can include this within your clinical supervision or clinical within your clinical supervisor appraisal. So there are ways where you can demonstrate this, or maybe you've done any critical appraisal training, or you've read a book on critical appraisal and you're doing a detailed reflection on that. I think just doing one and submitting may not be enough. It's about demonstrating that you've been in touch and you're doing that at regular intervals. So maybe doing some CPD activities maybe throughout the year should fulfill this criteria. And along with this, you are now here doing two critical appraisals. So in the other options, there you had to only submit one, but in this option, you have to submit two critical appraisals of different research methodologies, whether it is again via journal club or peer group, or a poster presentation. So again, that is another option where you've done a poster presentation in a reputed conference, and where you were able to where your poster was selected, and you're getting a certificate for that. So that poster with certificate and reflection uh, could be a good piece of evidence here. Now, if you are planning to submit your publication, say for example, you've published an article. Now, when it comes to publications, I think it's that on its own is not enough, because if you're doing a publication, if you are the first author and you have, say for example, you've done a review article, for example, where you are the main author, you have actively contributed in conceptualizing the topic, the review, and then you did the literature search along with your other co-authors. Then you shortlisted your articles based on your literature search. Then you critically evaluated all the articles. You summarized it in the way of a literature review. You completed the manuscript, and then you submit it for publication as the main author and the corresponding author. And then you contributed in completing the response to reviewers, and then you were right through, you contributed actively till the article was published. So if you're able to demonstrate that, then that on its own is good enough, which shows your research and critical appraisal capabilities. However, you have to be the main author, either the first or the second author to demonstrate that. Just to let you all know that I've just finished writing a book on various types of publications. So watch out for that space. I will keep you updated about when my book is going to be published, but it is about how to get your work published and what are the different types of publications which is feasible and which you can do in your busy clinical practice, and which can also fulfill the requirements for your portfolio. So I hope this was useful, and I'll see you again in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.